Hello, everybody. Um, my name is Courtney, and I am coming to do this video out of obedience. Um, I have been on quite the journey, just kind of seeking the Lord in a very real way, and God has blessed me to find exactly what I was looking for, and I was hoping that in obedience that this testimony could possibly help somebody that is maybe going through a rough season, or they are looking for their identity, or they're just, tired of going through things, and maybe people that are struggling with their faith while they're going through those things. And so the Lord has been working me out tirelessly, and I am so grateful to be before you today, truly able to say that I'm in the greatest season of my life thus far. Um, every single season that I've gone through in my life since birth has led up to this point, and it's very important that I share the testimony because I'm 32 years old, and just to be here now kind of makes me feel like a newborn baby, like a person that has come a mighty long way and was just suddenly, completely brought out of the darkness that can be this world. And let me just say that I've been a Christian um, since I was 17 years old. Claiming to be a Christian since I was 17 years old. And I'm just, I'm taken aback by the fact that I'm now 32 and I'm seriously and completely, wholly just becoming a Christian as far as I'm concerned, because in my mind now, a Christian is somebody that follows Christ. And when you follow somebody, you don't deviate from what they do. And when you find yourself deviating from the person that's leading you, then how can you call yourself a follower? And I'm so grateful for God, for Him never giving up on me, for Him being willing to chase me and chastise me, and to just keep knocking at my door until I really, really open the door and allow Him to come in and clean house, wreck shop, whatever you want to call it. When somebody completely takes everything you know and starts to peel the scales away from your eyes and show you the things that you didn't even know that you didn't know. God is so faithful, and He really started to do the work in me. September 13th, 2021. Yes, September 13th, 2021 is when I started to work for USDA. I became a consumer safety inspector, and it was the job that I've always wanted. It's similar to what Gabrielle Union did in the movie Deliver Us from Eva. And I was just so attracted to the scene where she went into I guess it was a restaurant, I can't really remember. But she went into this restaurant and she just kind of just told the guy completely off because there was a broken light bulb or something. But I was like, ooh, yeah, that's something I would like to do one day. Not really knowing, excuse me, that I would get to the point that I would be able to walk in that. And so I'm grateful that God started that work in me when I started that job. I have a master's degree in agriculture business, and it's a funny story behind that in itself, but I'll have to tell that another day. But I'm so excited that the Lord blessed me with that opportunity. I'm no longer working that job. It was very short lived in job years, because I only worked the job just shy of a year. And so I'm just going to start at the beginning. Um, I am a very, very sweet person. I'm so kind. And I say that as humbly as I know how, but you know, when you know yourself, you just know yourself. And so I've gone throughout my life and I've been this sweet, kind of meek, gentle person, never really hurt a fly. Um, and just, you know, kind of treating people the way that I wanted to be treated. Not perfect, but just a really just sweet person, you know, for lack of better words. And, you know, I've been able to learn on my journey with God and with Jesus is that no matter how nice and no matter how sweet you are, no matter how kind you are, no matter how good your intentions are, if you are outside of the will of God and if you're not living a life that is fruitful and if you're not following Jesus, he tells us to take up our cross and follow him. If you're not doing that, then your life is not going to bear the fruit that's desirable. Um, and that's a really hard thing to process. You know, you're like, why am I going through this? Why do I deserve to go through this? As nice and kind as I am, me, out of all people, are going through something like this. Um, and so I'm just going to go back to the beginning of when the shift actually started for me. Like I said, I've been a Christian. I was baptized at 17. And, you know, people may have the misconception that when you go into the water that you'll come up a new person. That's not always the case. I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for myself when I say that it wasn't the case for me, but it was a big moment in my life. It was an awesome change. To be 17, I thought that it was very late for me to be confessing Christ, but my mom and my father never told us that we had to be baptized, or they never forced us. It was solely my decision, and I do feel as though the Lord moved on my heart at 17 to get saved. I knew Jesus. I knew what he had done. I knew that he died on the cross for us. I knew that he was crucified for us and that he died and he was dead for 3 days and that he rose again with all power in his hands and that he ascended up into heaven and that his Holy or God's Holy Spirit was sent down to us to be our guide. And so I knew that, but I didn't know the scope of things like I do now. God says that he will bring you out of darkness into the marvelous light. And so I'm just grateful to sit here today as a true born again Christian, one that confesses Christ in my heart and in my lifestyle. And I'm so thankful. Um, I'm just grateful that God walked with me, and even times he carried me to get to a certain point in him. And I've now reached that point. So now to the story. I started my job as a consumer safety inspector on September 13th, 2021. And this was a life changing day for me. I'd worked some jobs out of necessity, and the jobs never fulfilled any type of desire that I ever claimed to have. And so I would go to work and I would be miserable in all these different positions, but little did I know truly that all things work together for those that love the Lord, for the good of those that love the Lord. And so despite what I was feeling, I was going through these processes, and the processes were necessary for the purpose on my life. And I wouldn't change a thing. If I could go back, I would not change a thing. And when I started this new job with USDA, I was finally able to use my master's degree. And I started as a GS7. For those of you that work in government, then you understand the grading scale. And so I started in a GS7, making a decent salary, more money than I'd ever seen before, with my name on it. And so I mean, the Lord just literally, he gave me what I'd worked so hard to get. And I was grateful. I have things that I wrote on the day that I started, and I knew that a supernatural shift had taken place in my life because I was in such deep depression for years, maybe starting in 2016 or 2017. I had my first child in 2015, and I was very green. I was very green and naive in my thinking. And, I'm thinking, oh, everything's going to work out. I'm going to have the desires of my heart. Um, I got this. Whew. But, you live and you learn. And like I said, I wouldn't change a thing. I would not erase one moment out of my journey, because my journey, I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful. To God be the glory for my process. But I had my baby, and I just, like I said, I worked the jobs out of necessity. I moved to Jonesboro in 2014 to get my master's degree, which it took me about 2 years to get. I obtained it, obtained my degree, excuse me, May 14th or something like that, Lord, May something, 2016. And I was very, very proud of that accomplishment, because I felt like I didn't get what I went to get in my undergraduate career, and I was going for something greater. My mom always says, go for the gusto. So I was just going to keep on going for something greater. So I took a 6-month break, and I went and got my master's. So fast forward back to the job. I started at a decent level, um, and I was so proud of that. I went in there with my head held high, and I knew that my life was going to change. I knew that, when you work hard for something, that you really want to see the fruits of your labor come to life. So I went on in there, and I met the ladies that I was working with, and I actually signed up to be a district-wide coverage inspector. And what that is an inspector that is going to travel within a district and inspect at different locations. So wherever my job was going to send me, I was going to go. I was going to have to go if I was going to keep the job. And so I was able to train at the Tyson Foods in Palm Bluff, Arkansas. Shout out to y'all, because I miss y'all. I love y'all. But I was able to train among the most family-oriented people. I love those ladies so much, and I still talk to them today, and I still probably get on their nerves today, but they love me back. Y'all love me back if y'all watching. But I started the job with some really, really family-oriented people, and I was going to work at 5 in the morning, and if you know me, you know I'm not an early bird. I'm a night owl. But I was going to work early at 5:30 in the morning, so I was having to get up at about 4:15 on some good days, but 4 o'clock, and I was just so eager to get there, so full of ambition, so full of enthusiasm to get there, because, like I said, I'm walking in what I worked for. And there was a shift of 5 ladies, and those ladies took me under their wing, and my supervisor was absolutely amazing. All of them that I had were amazing, and it was such an easy thing for me to do because I was hungry for it. I I quit my last job. I walked out of it without a 2-week notice, and I had a history of doing that, honestly, because it's difficult for me to stay places that make me feel uncomfortable. It was difficult. And so I prayed. I quit the job before the USDA job in January. I think January 13th was my last day or something like that. And I prayed. I went to the Lord sincerely, and I said, God, I don't want another job that I don't want. You know how you have some skin in the game when you're doing something that you want to do, and you're connected to it. And the jobs that I was working, I wasn't connected to at all. And so I pleaded with God, and I just said, God, I don't want another job that I don't want. And so I made it my mission. I redid my resume, and I'd asked for help, and it was difficult to find help. And so my mother told me, she said, I asked her, Mom, who can do a good resume? She said, you. And so she challenged me to give it my very best shot, and I did so. And like I always say, I threw my reel in the water, and I got a bite. I got a catch. And I was able to interview for that job in July, and I was able to get everything onboarded and begin my job September 13th. And what's so funny about the whole thing is that I cried out to God, and I was in such a deep depression, and He was carrying me through that even. And I've got a whole nother video for that. But he heard my cries, and now that I know fully that he was listening to me, I'm so grateful for that too. I cried out to him to the point that I was screaming and hollering because I didn't know what he had for me, but I knew the desires of my heart, and I knew there was a God, and I knew that he had purposed me for something greater. And I cried out to him, and I just told him, God, if you would change me, Father, if you would do, God, whatever I don't even know I need you to do, God, you can have my life. You can have me fully. And I'm going to give myself to you, God, in every way that I can. And the Lord began my process in that moment, I think. And so I started my job, and I went through a training program, and there was a training as a condition of employment, which means that all of the new people had so many days. I cannot remember the days, but all of us had so many days that we were allocated to go through this training process, on the job training. And then we would have to take a written exam, an extensive written exam, and we would have to score. Oh man, my memory not this bad. But we would have to score like 75% or something like that. And or 80, I can't remember. But we would have to make a cutoff score to keep our job. And so to this day, I don't know my cutoff score because they don't provide us with that information. But I was blessed to be able to pass that test the very first time. I think they were going to give us 2 times to take it. One try, one backup, and then you're out the door. You know, you no longer have a position. And so it was just that serious. And the process was tedious to learn these on the job things and then to apply them to that written test. So I went on, I passed the test. And when I passed the test, I became a real district wide coverage inspector. And I didn't know what was in store for me. And so I went on, and I went out on my first detail. That's what it's called in the government when you're sent to work somewhere other than your duty station. And my duty station was in Pine Bluff because that's where I was hired. And so I kind of worked out of that plant, and when there was nowhere else for me to go, I could be stationed there. But I was detailed out to Clarksville, Arkansas. And I went to Clarksville. It was my first time going out of town by myself, y'all, beyond Little Rock, Arkansas. And for those of you who know Arkansas, you know that Little Rock is just 45 miles from Pine Bluff. So that's not even adequate enough to call a trip. So I went to Clarksville, and that was 2 hours away, 2+ hours away. And so it was a shock for me, to have to do that so soon and to be willing to do it, almost excited to do it. And I went and cried like a baby. When I checked into that hotel, y'all, I was in tears all week. Talking about guilty because I left my babies. And by this time, I had 2 children, Jermaine and Jackson are my kids. And so I went to Clarksville, and I stayed in the Holiday Inn Express. It was about 5 miles away from the plant that I was working at, and it was also a Tyson Foods. And if any of you know about being an inspector, you could work at any type of plant. It doesn't have to be a Tyson. It could be a Pilgrims or any other production facility. And so I went to Clarksville. I was there for a week by myself, and I was, prayed up. By this time, the Lord has shifted things for me, and I was seeking Him greatly. And He did it for me. He kept me that week, and I came home. They were working a 10-hour shift for 4 days, and back in Pine Bluff, I would work a 8-hour shift 5 days a week, and so it was a little bit different, longer days, but a shorter week. So I came back home, and the Lord, He was working with me even on that trip. He was working with me a lot on that trip. Hey, Jack. I'm sorry, y'all. Jackson, give mommy just a moment. Okay, I'm doing a video.